Under a red dawn sky, smoke rose from the ruins of a mountain village. Among the shattered huts and frozen ashes, a small girl moved quietly. Her name was Lyra, barefoot, thin, and soot-streaked. She carried a cracked wooden bowl in her trembling hands. The world had forgotten her weeks ago. Ever since the war between the dragons and the northern empires began, the grown-ups had run, the soldiers had fallen, and even the sky itself seemed to burn. Lyra scavenged what little food she could find, melting snow into water, stealing roots from the dead earth. But that morning, when she heard the soft whimpering near a half-buried cave, something inside her changed. She thought it was another wounded soldier, maybe a lost animal. Instead, she found two dragonlings, small enough to fit in her arms, their scales dull and cracked, wings half-burned, eyes glazed from hunger. For a long moment, she stood frozen. Dragons had killed her people. Dragons had burned her home. But these two, they were crying. The first let out a weak hiss, baring tiny fangs, while the second could barely lift its head. Lyra dropped to her knees, the snow biting her skin. "Sure," she whispered. "You're hungry, huh?" She broke the half loaf of bread she'd been saving for herself, her last food, and placed crumbs between them. The dragonling sniffed, unsure, then began eating. She smiled, tears stinging her eyes. "There. See? It's not so bad." That night, she stayed with them in the cave. She used her thin blanket to cover their trembling bodies and sang softly, an old lullaby her mother used to hum. The little dragons pressed against her for warmth. By morning, when the blizzard swept across the peaks, 3 sets of footprints could be seen leading deeper into the cave. 1 human, 2 dragons. Days passed. Lyra scavenged whatever she could, mice, roots, scraps of dried meat from fallen travelers, and fed them bit by bit. They began to grow stronger. Their eyes glowed faintly gold in the dark. They started following her when she walked, resting their heads in her lap when she sat. She named them Ember and Ash. When she spoke to them, they tilted their heads, as if understanding. "You're not bad," she told them one night as snow howled outside. "You just need someone to care." She smiled faintly. "I guess I did, too." Then the world changed again. It began with a tremor deep beneath the mountain. A sound like thunder rolled through the clouds. The air shimmered, and the cave mouth filled with light, not sunlight, but firelight. Lyra ran to the entrance, shielding her eyes. Dozens, no hundreds, of massive shadows moved across the sky. Dragons, black, crimson, silver, ancient wings spanning entire valleys. They circled the peak like a storm. Ember and Ash lifted their heads, roaring weakly. The sound drew the attention of one of the larger dragons. It turned, a creature older than time, scales like obsidian armor, eyes burning with molten gold. When it landed before the cave, the earth split beneath its claws. Lyra froze. The air shimmered with heat. The great dragon lowered its head, nostrils flaring. "Who?" It rumbled, voice like mountains grinding. "Has dared to touch our young?" Lyra couldn't breathe. The dragons behind it growled, dozens of voices echoing like thunder. She clutched her tattered blanket. Ember and Ash crawled forward, chirping softly. "Me," she whispered. The dragon blinked. "A human," it said with disbelief, its voice filling the mountain. "A child of ash and steel. You feed our kin." "They were hungry," Lyra said, her voice breaking. "They would have died." "You fed the enemy of your people?" "I fed 2 hungry children," she replied quietly. "Does that make me your enemy too?" A silence fell. Then, slowly, the great dragon leaned down, until its enormous eye filled the world before her. In its reflection, Lyra saw herself, small, trembling, but standing. Then the dragon rumbled softly. It wasn't a growl this time. It was almost sorrow. "The hatchlings live because of you," it said. "Our kind do not forget debts of blood." The others murmured among themselves, ancient words vibrating the air. Then the Great One spoke again. "What is your name, child?" "Lyra." "Lyra of the Ashes," it said. "From this day, no flame shall touch you." And then the impossible happened. The dragon knelt. The sky seemed to hold its breath as the oldest of the draconic race bowed its head to a human child. Ember and Ash squeaked happily and crawled into Lyra's arms. When the dragon lifted its head again, its eyes glowed brighter. You fed our young. Now we feed your world. Within the hour, dragons descended across the valleys, not in wrath, but in protection. They burned down the invading war camps that had enslaved survivors. They carried food in their talons, entire carcasses, fruits from distant lands, water from glacial rivers. The humans who remained in hiding could only watch in awe. The dragons have gone mad, one soldier whispered. They protect a human? A week later, Lyra stood at the mountain's peak beside the two young dragons, now stronger and proud. The great dragon returned again, his massive wings folding as he bowed before her once more. Our kind is ancient, he said. We have burned worlds and ended empires. But never has a human shown mercy to our children. Mercy isn't rare, Lyra said softly. It's just forgotten. The dragon's eyes glowed warmly. Then we shall remember. With that, he turned to the gathered host of dragons filling the sky, thousands strong. By the old flame, by the first oath, he roared, voice thundering to the clouds. This child is under our protection. She is kin of fire. She is of the flight. The dragons answered as one, a roar that shook the heavens. The sound reached every kingdom, every listening ear. Lyra covered her ears, laughing through tears. Ember and Ash wrapped their wings around her, purring softly. The great dragon looked down at her again. You are alone no longer, Lyra of the Ashes. The flame has adopted you. Adopted? She whispered, blinking. You mean you are one of us. He spread his wings. Your heart burned true when ours had gone cold. For the first time since her parents died, Lyra felt something she had forgotten. Warmth that wasn't from fire, safety that wasn't from walls. When the dragons took flight again, she rode between Ember and Ash, her hair whipping in the wind. Below, villages that had been enemies watched in stunned silence as dragons carried her like a queen through the skies. From that day forward, stories spread of the orphan girl who fed dragon cubs and changed the fate of two species. In time, the wars ended. Human kings sent envoys to the mountain, bearing offerings, seeking alliance. They were greeted not by fire, but by a human girl in simple robes, flanked by two great dragons whose eyes gleamed with pride. When the envoys bowed, she only said, The dragons remember kindness. Do you? And behind her, the mountain rumbled with the voices of the eternal flame.